He is the most decorated Irish rugby player of all time. Jonathan Sexton. We're talking Rieko Ioane here.
In the heat of battle, I've done plenty of things.
Tell me about it. I've been on the receiving end.
He's calling the same things that he. This is just what happened in the heat of the moment. It's not a problem from my point of view.
Tell me about the relationship with O'Gara.
There's confrontation on the pitch. You're trying to get the same thing. You're trying to win. You're both trying to win.
Where do you bury your bodies? That's quite a sort of.
When I wrote that
It doesn't reflect well the conflicts. They sort of left towards the end of my career, I would say. I kind of regret a lot of it, but at the time I kind of thought this was just the way you do it.
What sort of sparked that progression and change of personality? Was it
people.
a coach? Was it just people?
Yeah. People.
And if I say Michael Cheika, did he rebrand you?
Yeah, he was the guy that called me Johnny. So now it's on the front of the book because of him.
You were like, can I compete with Martin Johnson as Jono? Probably not. Rebrand Johnny.
Into the final moments, Alex Payne trying to keep this side going forward. Haskell takes it on now with just relentless chat, largely about himself. And there's Tyndall to add the finishing touch of glamour and World Cup winning stories. That is how you podcast.
3, 2, 1, off we go. Hello Dream Team, welcome along to this week's episode, a special episode of The Good, The Bad and The Rugby, proudly sponsored by Continental Tyres, our go-to for premium tyres. At Continental, safety, performance and grip are the name of the game, in stark contrast to this unpredictable show where we're never quite sure how the journey will unfold. So buckle up once again, enjoy the ride as we welcome a guest today who needs no real introduction, but we're going to give him one anyway. He is the most decorated Irish rugby player of all time. He is a legend for Leinster, Ireland and the Lions. We're talking 4 Six Nations titles, including 2 Grand Slams, 4 European Cups with Leinster, and let's not forget, World Player of the Year in 2018, where he produced one of the finest acceptance speeches of all time. We will come on to that, Jonathan Sexton. It's been a career of highs, hard knocks, and plenty of conflict in between, I'm sure you'll agree. And it's now all captured in your fantastic autobiography, Obsessed. Welcome back to The Good, The Bad and The Rugby in person.
Thank you.
Very nice to see you. How are you? You look about 10 years younger, I think, than the last time any of us saw you, which is obviously the benefits of getting out of the way of tackle bags, etc. How are you?
Yeah, potentially that little bit less stress, being scrutinised every weekend. I'm good, thank you.
Good.
So, thanks for having me.
We're going to start with a gentle loosener, which is, can you remember what you were doing exactly a year ago today?
Well, someone told me a couple of days ago it was the Scottish game.
No.
So we were...
It's the quarter-final game.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
so you were getting ready for that.
Maybe I knew the answer.
Easy
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Kick him right in the dick before you even started.
Don't turn him off on the first question.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, I thought you were a pro.
How has the 12 months been?
Well, that was the worst day of the last 12 months.
Let's start there and build up.
Yeah, start with the worst game.
If you know, it's like, calm down, Johnny, calm
As he
down.
suddenly shuts down.
Yeah.
People from Penguin are panicking.
Yeah.
They're filling syringes. Calm down.
Is it too late to pull out the podcast?
We had you try before, yeah. Tell me what the last year has been like for you. Has it been an easy sort of park it, move on? Because you're now, firstly tell us what the day-to-day is for you now, and then what that journey has been like, putting away some of the most decorated rugby boots in Irish rugby history.
Well, it's been a massive transition, that's for sure. It's been tough at times, but it's been brilliant at times. You know, having I suppose simple things like being able to spend time with your kids, going away for more than like 2 weeks in the summer. Loads of like, you know, really basic things that you take for granted.
Weekends.
Weekends,
Yeah.
every single weekend. Like so there's some really good things, but like you always miss the dressing room, the crack that goes on. You miss when the guys have big games and you're going, I wish I could be there today. But I think that's normal, especially in the first year, I would say. Hopefully it'll die down a little bit.
What is your out now? I mean, we're going to get into, and forgive me saying, there's quite a lot of conflict in your book. What is your out now? How are you getting rid of whatever the energy is that you need to, or you certainly have been expending as a professional rugby player?
Yeah, I've taken golf a bit more seriously over the last 12 months. I've played on a 7-a-side soccer team, which sparks up some conflict.
Good.
Which is no ref, which means some heated arguments with the opposition.
So the fires haven't dimmed?
No, the competitive fires
That's with a few of the old players, though, as well, isn't it?
Fergus, Rod McFadden. Fergus McFadden, yeah. But that kind of a few boys that I played like Leinster schools with like 20 years ago. And a couple of my friends, a couple of their friends. And but we really hit it off as a group, and now you got to team again. And
Have you got merchandise?
Yeah, well, I still have a relationship with Adidas. So I said to them, look,
He's the dream for a 7-side team.
We're called the boys. Like it's we wear Celtic kit because Adidas wears Celtic.
Got you.
And
You can see why he's in the team. He's probably not very good at football. Be like, hey, listen, I've got a mate. He's got connections with Adidas. We can have her all clothes. That's why I got into everything.
Hooking it over the top of the stand.
They don't let you play.
We're not playing in stands. Trust me. We're playing on a Astro pitch, which is divided into 4 pitches. But it's great crack. Honestly,
Do you have like handshakes and stuff like that? Team
with the
tune?
team.
Yeah, no, what I mean, you have like
Running out
like
team tune.
the boys.
The boy, yeah, we have a
BHOYS,
WhatsApp
isn't
group.
it?
We go out for pints after big wins.
I love
so
it.
It's just the same.
What position are you? Are you any good? I imagine you've got some deft touch in there.
But very inconsistent.
Right.
No, like we're getting there. We get better as a team. Like we're pretty good now. We got promotion last year. We won the second division, which was a big celebration. But we're hated, we're absolutely hated. We turn up in like Adidas.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah.
Tracksuit tops. We got the best boots.
You're like
the best funded seven-a-side team around.
He's like Globo Gym.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got full outfits. And the average Joe's hating it. They come like headering. They come on their own bus, music. They've got massage people, cheerleaders. You can see it
were
happening
you one
now.
of those players? Because I always remember Danny Kerr. We used to play football every now and again, and always thought he could play football. Were you one of those type of guys? We had like Sips, Danny Kerr,
Who had football trials.
who literally thought they should have been footballers rather than rugby players.
No,
Were
I
you
wasn't in
guy?
that category. No, I played football was my first love of sport. That was what I was obsessed with. Man United, played soccer for my school. Then I went to a rugby school and things just flipped fully. You know what I mean? But yeah, if I could have one thing to do in my life, I would play for Man United in Old Trafford.
Really?
Yeah.
You've probably got a game for them right now, actually, if you're available.
It's killing me.
This is all going to surprise you, but I never had trials for football. I know it's going to shock all of you, but I was utterly shithouse at football. Honestly, I used to be sponsored by Adidas a long time ago, and they put those Predators on.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
That's what being a legend will do for you.
The length of kit deals is quite long.
Yeah, hello Adidas. But I know. So I put the Adidas Predators on and played in a charity football match, and actually the share price of Adidas went down due to my appalling performance. So I was banned from ever doing that again. But I think getting part of a gang is quite good. Like game. Because there's a recent study that says men need at least 2 boys' nights out a week or 2
a week.
Well,
Who conducted this study, Hask?
Well, I don't know.
James Hask.
That's why his successful marriage has continued.
Yeah. Marriage guides for James Haskell. Have 4 boys' nights a week. I'm going to write a book on that. But no, I think it was twice a month, 2 boys' nights a month that you have to have. So I don't have that, unfortunately.
So do you have a regular paddle? Because I saw
Play
paddles
paddle
in
as
there.
well, yeah, I love that.
So you're just chasing anything to get anger out of you?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just competitive. That's the team. And when you get to go and play with a team, it brings you back to the old days. It gives you the love of, the thing that you loved rugby for. It's a lot of it is that being part of a team, being part of a group, and so yeah, they fulfill that for me.
And does that allow you to? Because obviously you've done what most people probably wouldn't have thought you'd have done, given how good you were at the game, how studious you've always been talked about the game. People always thought you'd walk into a media career or a coaching career, but you've actually really stepped into civvy life in terms of a real job. So you get that sport thing to fill the time otherwise, but how have you found that? Because I think one thing we always talk about when we have retired sportsmen is they're finding that worth within where their new career takes them. I mean, I'm 10 years out and I'm still not really sure. This doesn't
still
really
mucking
give me
about.
I'll be honest with you, this doesn't really give me anything, just frustrations. But have you been able to find that way? Because what chief of staff at?
Yes, I'm working for a company, but I was saying to Hask before, I did for the last 3 years of my career, I did 1 day a week with them. So we always have a day off, in a week, and I used to go in and worked for them then. So it's been that was an eye opener, but it's made the transition that little bit easier. When the people you're going into work with, the place you're going to work, roughly what you're going to be doing, makes it easier, makes it less.
I had no idea, honestly had no idea. When I asked you off camera, I said, so what are you doing now? I thought you were genuinely coaching. I don't know where I thought you were coaching, but I thought of any man I knew was going to walk straight off the field, go straight into coaching, your attention to detail, driving standards, the way you saw the game, the way you play the game, perfect. And then you said you worked in a company that was making glass.
Yeah.
course. Sorry, if I bunk my head, is my concussion kicking in here? Would you ever go back to coaching, or what's the mindset behind that, or do you just love the corporate world?
I said never say never. Like it's the sort of what I was battling with after my rugby career was what do I do next? You know what I mean? So I had this opportunity in front of me, and could I have stayed in the game? Probably. But like,
did you have conversations?
I had some conversations, yeah. Nothing ever too concrete, but I had approaches to say like, would you be interested to go into it? And like, if you put a gun to my head, yeah, I would have loved it. But like, I've got 3 kids. We live in Dublin. They love their grandparents. They love the schools they're in. I love being in Dublin as well. I've lived there all my life, apart from 2 years I went to Paris, and it's I want to be there. Yeah. So when you can only coach 2 teams in the world, which is like either Leinster or Ireland, which you can't do straight away. No. You need to go and branch out, learn new ways, learn new methods, learn new culture. Because I'd be very kind of fixed. The coaches that I had influenced me in those 2 teams. But you need to freshen up. You need to, if I was going to go back in and work with the players, you need to come back with some new ideas. Otherwise, it's pointless for them.
And why not the media? I mean, you could walk into any studio anywhere in the world, but you don't want to. Is that a too close to the game? Too recently retired? Don't want to criticise people who trained and played with?
A bit of all of the above. Yeah, a bit of all of it. Like I made some great friends in the final few years of my career, and if I went back into media, it involves criticising them, and it would be tough for me. You know what I mean? And I've seen guys that I've been friends with, and I've stayed friends with them. Because I understand they've got a job to do, but it's tough. It's tough to go in and give your honest opinion on guys that you've slogged away. But my initial thing would be I'd try and protect them at all costs. And I think I'd turn into a shit pundit, because it's.
That's not punditry. We've always said we're not here to slag anyone off. No one who plays international rugby goes into a bad player, turns into a bad player overnight, and you'd understand that more than anyone. There's the occasion where you piss off nations, which we've done on this. Ireland being one at one point, which I've then turned around, but now South Africa don't like me either. But there you go.
Join the queue. The book, well done. It's a really, really good read, and I say that genuinely. And it's very interesting because lots of players release biographies. Everyone knows that you've got a book out, and that's great credit to you, and it's great credit to the team around you. There is a lot to get into. Just before we do that, the process of writing a book, did they come to you and say, Johnny, you've got to do it? Did you find yourself with a typewriter and lots of hours to spare? How have you found the process of putting it down into written word?
Was it all those 7 hours lying awake of things that you
middle of the night
that you felt?
No, so in Leinster 2013, I did a kind of year in the life book, and the Penguin at the time said to me, look, would you think about doing a career and finishing one? And I said, yeah, potentially down the line. So it's way back, 2016, 2017, we started talking about it, and we committed to doing it, thinking 2019 would be the end. So somehow managed to eke 4 more years out of my body.
Squeeze the pips.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been a long time in the making, which is good in one way, because I've had to spend a lot of time thinking about what goes in. Peter, the ghostwriter, he was great to work with, you know what I mean? But it's been a long process. But it's allowed him the time to make it hopefully good to read.
And some big old headlines have come out, in terms of serialisation.
Mm-hmm.
You have found that.
So is the worst bit.
Well, the hardest bit is the worst day for me was last Sunday when it was serialised in the papers, because they just take the sort of 1 or 2 words. They don't look at the broader context of the.
We're talking Rieko Ioane here.
Well, that was a big storm about that, yeah. Which is never nice, I didn't mention it to kick up a fuss or to sell books. This is just what I was thinking at the time. This is just what happened. I don't think badly of him over it. You know what I mean? What happened in the heat of battle. I've done plenty of things.
Tell me about it. I've been on the receiving end.
He's called me the same things that he.
I called you worse. My song was way better. I'm just not as good as
you
player.
never strangled someone for squirting water.
Yeah, this is true.
That was brilliant.
Because Ioane then stuck something up on social media. Did this come across?
That's what I don't want. I don't want to tit for tat. It wasn't. That's not the intention. It's just to explain, because I was getting criticised for my reaction at the time. So the camera pans to me, the final whistle's gone, and I'm chasing after someone looking like a sore loser, which is probably true. But I was just trying to explain, this is just what happened in the heat of the moment. It's not a problem from my point of view. Yeah. But this is it.
If you saw him now, would you laugh and have a handshake, or would you just sort of
I'd have no
nod
problem.
and walk on by?
No problem at all. I don't think if he's putting up on social media, I don't think he'd be too interested. But like, I had lots of messages from people in New Zealand, but I'm just like, I didn't do it for this reason. I don't want to get into it.
It's part of the story.
Yeah, it's just a moment in time, and just to show that how a reaction can be portrayed one way, but this is just what happened in the background, and that was it.
Yeah,
I was interested when I saw you'd written a book, because I obviously I know you better now, but you were always very sort of similar to Ioane in regards to focus on the team, winning at all costs, putting the team first, family. You didn't want to put yourself above the parapet too much, and didn't want to be out a media guy. So when you write a book, it's hard because you've got an amazing story, but the fallout can happen. I wondered how that sat with you, and how hard was it seeing those things? Because when you're out the game now and you look at things like, when I read it, you're just like, well, that happened. Like, there's loads of things happen. It's sport. It's the expectation of the public is that when you have rugby or whatever it is, a combat sport, you're meant to conduct yourself like a gentleman at all time, forgetting that it's a violent sport, it's emotional reactions, it's the heat of the moment. I wondered, how did it sit with you revealing those stories, and was there stuff that you wanted to put in that you took out, and was there a bit of backs and forwards with the ghostwriter going, listen, I don't want that in there because I don't want the controversy?
Yeah, well, that's the thing that you battle with, isn't it? Like that's the balance that you need. So when you make a commitment to do the book, you kind of go, okay, well, I want to make it a honest book. I want to give people an insight into me, whether that's right or wrong. You know what I mean? It's trying to find that balance, and I tried to do that. You know what I mean? But it was tough, and especially, I haven't done any media since the World Cup last year, and then all of a sudden you're like 12 months later, it's like wham, like all like that's a bit I don't enjoy, but it is what it is.
Did you deal? How do you deal with that? Because when we interviewed you before, again, you kind of, you're very close to your family. You kind of would consult with those around you, and that'd be your sounding board. Obviously, when you're out of that, when you walk in with your teammates, you can go, fucking hell, we saw what you said about that. You're like, listen, lads, you know the story. If they kind of console you, when you're a bit more exposed and you're going into the office and you're walking in, and these people aren't sports people, is it harder? How did you sort of get a bit of a sounding board? Do you just shrug it off? Like, what do you do with that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous going into the office on Monday with all the stuff in the papers, but no one really.
Oh, fine.
No, yeah.
Because I've heard about what you did to Leo Cullen. So fucking nobody wants anything. Yeah.
But I think what you've always done well is, and you say it in the book, is that you are so passionate, and obviously the book is called Obsessed. You're so obsessed with winning, is that you recognise that you make mistakes on the field, or you might get into the wrong situation, because through your career, whether it be Ronan O'Gara, whether it be Leo incident with Leo, and then you say you lie awake thinking about it and of how you can fix it. And I think that's one thing you've always managed to come across is like, when you make a mistake, you're quite happy to go, look, but it's the heat of the battle and it is what it is. And I think, there's a few other players who don't have that ability to do that, which has led them into, you compare that to Ioane, who really doesn't like the media, and then a lot of the time doesn't get his side across, which I thought you did really well.
Yeah. Tell me about the relationship with O'Gara, because we've mentioned him. Because now actually you get on quite well with him. Is that fair to say? You got a good relationship with Rog?
Well, we had that like 2 years in Paris together. Yeah. So we obviously became friends then. But like he's. But
initially.
Initially, like it's like Hask just described. You're playing a game. There's confrontation on the pitch. You're trying to get the same thing. You're trying to win. You're both trying to win. It leads to conflict, argument. You know what I mean? That's kind of normal in our lives, I would say. And then obviously we spent 2 years in Paris together, became friends. But then you drift again, because he went off to New Zealand for whatever 3 or 4 years. Sorry, he stayed in Paris for another couple of years. When I left, he went to New Zealand. Then he lives in France. So I haven't seen him in whatever years. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So. Apart from when La Rochelle played Leinster.
Yeah. But I saw something the other day, because they were reading to Rog some of the quotes about the tussles that you had and what you said to each other on the pitch in the heat of the moment, and he sort of laughed and was very, very complimentary about you. How important is it to you that where you have had conflict in the past, you want to fix it? Is that something that is part of your makeup, or are there a few sort of relationships which are done, dusted, and you've got no interest in revisiting?
No, like it's... Like, if you read the whole book, like, conflict, I had two brothers, like, we used to just, turn on TV, no, okay. it's my remote. No, it's not. Scrap to the death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that was just normal. Like, you know what I mean? And then it kind of continues into rugby. Like, but you fight these guys because you're very close to them. Like when you're with your teammates, you know what I mean? And you both want the same thing, which is you want to win on Saturday. You want to win whatever it is, the European Cup, the league, whatever. And it just leads to a bit of argy-bargy, like, you know, but like, maybe I blew it up too much. And
I think it is rugby, isn't it? Things happen. It's like like Hash just said. When you're on a rugby pitch, it's physical. You're gonna when you think you've got someone over on something, you can drop a comment in there, but then there's always a recourse at the next time if something doesn't go your way, and then it's how you take that. But it's what has always been said about rugby, right? You say it on the field, you do it on the field, then you leave it on the field.
But I think that's a really interesting point, because again, in the fantastic story about obviously you having a fight with Leo Cullen, one of your mates, obviously Ronan O'Gara, that real competition, and look,
O'Driscoll.
But all those kind of having those competitive,
there's a lot of them in there.
But I think having that competitive nature is what makes you successful, and I think sometimes. In the real world or civilian world, you think you've got to be best friends with everyone. There's that belief, and people talk about culture. You've got to be best friends with everyone. You don't. You've got to be respectful of people, and you've got to have a united goal, but you don't have to get on with everyone all the time. You don't have to hang out with everyone. But there's a belief that as a team, you've got to do that. What's really interesting, I think, about what rugby teaches you, because of the on-the-edge nature of it, and it can spill into violence, is you can kick fuck out of each other in a training session where you're punching each other, where someone gets cut, someone gets split, and then the session finishes, and you go out and go, It very rarely ever rolls in. That's the bizarre thing, because you'd have a beef. Like, it was very interesting with the Mike Brown stuff and the Ben Teo thing. That obviously was on a team social, spilled over, didn't really get
pre-World Cup,
didn't really get addressed properly. Things like, I remember, fighting Trevor Leota. The worst decision ever.
Idiot.
Worst decision ever. 2 seconds later, you broke up. They give you a hug. I think that's how many times would you have had a training ground scrap? Especially you. Like I remember, watching in Lions training.
Very rare for a 10 to be.
Very 10. But no, you'd be there, putting it in there. Being competitive, leading from the front, demanding standards. That can spill over, especially with your own teammates.
But like I only put in the arguments that I was in. I don't talk about anyone else's arguments.
No.
But they were like loads of them.
Yeah.
I remember there was one, Stuart Lancaster, where he was new and he couldn't believe like the amount of fighting that was going on. And he sent 2 lads off. I won't mention names because I don't like.
What does it rhyme with? We always do rhymes with. Drino Bosco.
They're both forwards. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And he said, right, around the post, calm down, and come back. And they were like chatting to each other, running like around the post, and they were mouthing off, and then they got to the post and they just started and we were like, the whole team had to run up and like break it up, and Stuart was like, what the hell have I got myself in
so
for
that was when he first came to Leinster? Because
year,
if you, that's what, again, when you see with when I saw with Johnny in Lions training stuff, was the demanding of standards. So like you run a line, we've talked about it, you where the fuck are you? You've forgotten it. You're standing out the wing and you aren't paying attention, or your wing hasn't come off to it work. You're going to bollock them, or you get a bad pass from scrum half. You're going to fucking say, we're here to have that competitive nature. If you don't like that, you'll kick off. So you'll not only have drama with your own teammates, it'll spill over in training. And I love that Stuart came over, because he's got a very nice man, Stuart. He's got that sort of idea where everyone's going to get on. To come into an environment where you're driving the standards and everyone's been fucking chippy, he must have had an absolute meltdown.
But it's also, I find it easier with people that you like and the mates to wind them up on a pitch, because you know what the response is going to be, and that's the response you want to get. So I think it's just a unique sport for that.
You ever started something that you wish you hadn't? Like with someone on, like one day you've given it large, go, yeah, I'll fucking do it. Oh my God, he's heard me.
Too many times.
What percentage of your scraps did you win?
So you see, it's easy to scrap on the pitch because you know the boys are going to break it up.
You and his army. It's interesting you mentioned Stuart Lancaster. There's a very interesting book in a bit in the book where you talk about psychometric testing under Stuart Lancaster that gave you the following feedback on your leadership. When communicating with Jonathan, do not try and control the conversation, underestimate his ability to decide for himself, criticise his ideas or take issue with his ideas, try to manipulate his point of view, wait for praise or recognition. Where do you bury your bodies? That's quite a sort of...
when I wrote that down,
it doesn't reflect well.
When I wrote that down, I was like, ooh, Paul Spector from The Fall, Jamie Dornan's character. How many of you actually murdered?
Do you recognise that, though?
Well, I didn't at the time.
Right. Well, there you go. So you don't criticise his ideas or manipulate his
but you learn, like, don't you? Like, I was always very, obsessed because the book.
It's fine, perfect.
About getting better at rugby, like getting better kicking, better passing, getting better in the gym, even though I didn't ever manage to do it.
Shoulders are going well.
I was going to wear pads today when I was in here with you.
80 shoulder pads, get him in.
So where was I? So I was always very, very, conscious of that, but no one ever kind of challenged me on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So that's the, I suppose, the interesting part of the story is, a lot of the conflicts, they sort of left towards the end of my career, I would say. There's still little moments, but they weren't anything like the start. And that's what I wanted to show. That's the reason for putting it in, is to show, like, I kind of regret a lot of it. Like, I regret the amount of it. I maybe didn't need to do it. But at the time, I kind of thought this is just the way you do it.
Yeah.
This is just what you do. And that was based on the people that I had admired growing up, the people that I had watched in other sports. You know what I mean?
You talk about admiring Roy Keane, Alex Ferguson, Michael Cheika. There's a theme developing there.
Yeah, well, that's
and your
that's
dad.
my point.
There's a describe your dad. It says fiery Kerryman with a short fuse. Is that
yeah,
fair?
well, that's yeah.
Good.
But
Good role models for a calm and peaceful
Well, no,
life.
that's just what it was. You know what I mean? That just shows the sort of the influences that I had were this way. So that rubs off on me, but it also solidifies it. This is the way to do it. This is the way to lead. This is the way to act. So that it's a mixture of things. So it's all their fault, really. It's
Right.
nothing to do with me.
Exactly.
But did you look? Because I remember I looked for chips on my shoulder or people criticising. Because then I think you always, if you're of a certain mindset, play better when there's that side of proving people wrong. Was that something you looked for? You know, you look at Michael Jordan. He always talked about that. He'd try and find someone who turned something that opposition coaches say as a snub, so then he'd raise his game. Was that something you always looked for as well?
Yeah, I didn't always search for it, but it didn't take much for it to happen. And that would be, that drove me. The things it's mad, because the things that used to drive me were the things that might have happened, like being left out of a team 4 years previously. You know what I mean? That was it's just the way I was wired. And
I carried not
not
getting picked in under 15s North.
I imagine you just carried from being from the north as a way of fucking.
I always had a history of being grumpy, but I agree. I think it's a way that
and I had a lot of it in my early career.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you about that, because you leave rugby as the most decorated Irishman, as we've said, but your journey in was exactly what you described in terms of scrapping and fighting and having to prove yourself over and over again. Tell us about the journey that you had in trying to break through to where where you wanted to be.
Yeah, so it was a battle at the start, not the start, at the end of my school's career, for example, didn't get picked for Irish schools, didn't get picked for Irish under-19s, got dropped by the Irish under-21s, got picked for Leinster for a season, but then got dropped the following season. So I was very much on the periphery. I wasn't a guy like Rob Kearney, for example, who I played schools with, who went straight from school, played for Leinster, stayed in Leinster, played for Ireland, played for the Lions, and just went like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was a class above everyone.
And he's really good looking as well.
Yeah, exactly. He had it all. So it was just different for me. Looking back, it was great. As in, because it taught me a lot. It really prepared me. I don't know what would have happened if I got thrown into international rugby at 2021.
Yeah. Were you the character that we've sort of described at that point, though, or did that sort of obsession and that drive and that edge come as you went through the professional years?
I think it was a mix. I was very I wanted to be in sport in some way. Rugby was the way I kind of thought would happen, but I didn't really know how to make it happen. I wasn't professional. I didn't ever step foot in a gym till I was 19, 20. You'd never believe it.
I was about to say, have you ever stepped in a gym?
At 19, 20, I was doing my first gym session at 19. Brad Harrington, did you ever come across Brad?
Yeah,
Australian guy. I came into the gym and he looked at me and goes, "What are you?" And he bullied the crap out of me for weeks, months probably. Tough love, you know what I mean? But then, when it came to the rugby side of things, he saw I was competitive and I was okay skill wise, and I saw something in me then, and we forged a brilliant relationship. But at the start, so that's at 19. There's guys coming out of school now at 19 and they're ready for professional rugby. They've been in almost an academy for 4 or 5 years in their school, and Leinster get hold of them early. So it's just a different story, different path. So yeah, when you say it to me now, like, would you, even at 24, like, just about to get my first cap, if you said to me, like, you go on and get that many caps for Ireland, I'd have snapped your hand off, like, straight away.
That's mental. I didn't realise you started at 24 to get that many caps.
Yeah.
I think that's scarring. Though.
Yeah, that's very true. But it's still a hell of a journey to do that.
I do think that's scarring at that age of having to ask yourself that question of how am I going to get there. Either breaks you or it makes you, and clearly it made you.
Yeah, I think so. You have to fight to get there. So when you're there, you don't want to let it go. You don't want to lose it. I think the other thing that I would say is that my younger brother, who's an unbelievably good rugby player, he coaches now with Connacht.
Was he at Exeter for a bit?
No, that's the other brother.
That's the other brother.
Yeah, he's a policeman in Jersey.
Oh, right, okay, got you.
So the brother that was closest to me in age, like he had a horrific leg break at 16, like almost like a year trying to sort it out, like multiple operations, in hospital for like a couple of months with like his leg like left open with
playing
compartments
the
in
game.
it. Yeah. So it was always a reminder to me like that. Can like his dreams taken away from him with that, made his dreams a lot harder because, those 2 years in school are so important. 16 to 18, Leinster are looking at you, the academies are looking at you, and he missed it. So it was always a great reminder that I was very lucky doing what I did.
Yeah.
So I never took it for granted and always wanted to make the most of it.
Obviously, reading about the kind of character you were, we talked about the kind of scrappy and fighting for everything. What were you like with those disappointments? Because I talk about my perspective when I was younger and I got disappointments. I used to take them really badly. I'd be very critical of myself. My old man was very loving but very critical. Like it used to wear on me quite hard, and I had to work on it throughout my career, even now. And in the book which is written, we talk about kind of that insecurity. What were you like? Because I imagine sometimes the scrapping and stuff's fine, the competitive, but those disappointments and not making it and seeing other people go. How did you deal with it, and what did you do, and who supported you?
Yeah, well, I touched on it a little bit. I could have touched on it more. Like when I got feedback when I was that age, I was very sensitive. Like I was almost like, no, that's bullshit. You know what I mean? Whereas later in my career, when you're getting advice, you view it in a different way. How do I get better? And that was. But again, when you don't know, the feedback was almost just fuel for me to get motivated by. It wasn't actually. Didn't view it as feedback almost.
Okay.
So I didn't listen to that much, which was wrong. But again, came full circle, and feedback at the end was very different. It was all about just getting
Would you
better.
ever say if you did get those disappointments, were you head down, misery, withdrawn, or were you bravado? Because you said you thought it was bullshit, but how did you handle it? What was like a young Johnny like? Because when we talked to you on the other podcast, you would, if you had a loss or you hadn't have a good performance, it would wear on you for a couple of days. That was the image I got. So obviously that doesn't go away because that's when you were playing for Leinster and Ireland. What were you like?
I was withdrawn probably, yeah. Like I remember, like gave the example of not getting picked for Irish schools. I remember going down to watch them. So internally wouldn't have told anyone I was disappointed, but I would have been, bitter. I would have been gone to watch it like, English jersey on under my jacket.
Voodoo doll.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that kind of mentality, like, don't want them to do well because I'm not picked, and chip on the shoulder, like, that's not right. You know what I mean? Like, I should have just viewed like, well, if I could do it again and go, how do I get picked? Ring someone. How do I get how do I get better to like don't get left out next time? But again,
I always find that a funny thing to say because if you. Maybe you would change how you see it earlier, but at the end of the day, you're sat here today with the career that you've had, and I'm pretty sure there's not much you'd have changed. So I think it's worked out in perfectly the way, and that's why, and I think that's why everyone's journey is so unique to how they are. And I think, I know my journey was sort of similar in terms of not getting there until very late on, and then, people doubting you, and I think that's what made me the way that I was. My dad was similar to Hask's, but I think sometimes you need those battles.
It's interesting though, if you don't address that. So what I'm reading here with the progression from you as a person to being scrappy to later on in your career not having as much conflict. Also, same thing, being able to hear feedback and wanting to get better, and that change of sort of mindset. If you don't address that and then you go into retirement and you're still like that all the time, that can be your undoing. That's what I've noticed with a lot of people who haven't progressed and haven't addressed things, because the thing that made you successful, which is obviously the determination to fight, can also be your undoing, because in civilian world and in family life and in married life, if you don't address that and you're not prepared to listen to anyone's feedback, you probably end up like me, I think.
Good luck with that.
But what sort of sparked that progression and change of personality? Was it a coach? Was it just people?
People, like good coaches, good people, people challenging the right way to get better. Like I said, you can get better at kicker, passer, being in the gym, all those things. Whereas like, you need someone to actually sit down and go like, you can get better as a leader. You can, like, because again, like I always deep down wanted to be captain, but I was never made captain. And like, obviously now it's clear why, but it was, and then, but when people challenge you and say, you can get better at this, you can do things a different way. And then like, it was the most rewarding thing for me was Andy at 34 years of age saying to me, I want you to captain the team. Like, we'll take it year by year. I'm not guaranteeing anything, beyond this campaign. But that was like a huge moment for me. Like one of my fondest.
How did you find that out? Because they always talk about, there's always a debate about captains and where they should sit. Most, should they be in the forward pack? Because obviously you for years and years ran that team in terms of how they were going to attack. Did the captaincy add anything, or did it, in terms of pressure wise, or did it, you were so well oiled because it was later on that you knew exactly what you were doing on the day to day, so you could then focus on just being a captain?
I think it forced me into the things that the guys were challenging me about. Like I did want to get better in all those areas, but then when you get the captaincy, you've got a responsibility now that goes with it. But in saying that, like, in my early days in Leinster, like I said, I mentioned my arguments, but we used to have like characters that were all the same. They were all the exact same, and we used to kill each other, like, honestly. And it was brilliant, like, and we loved it, and we were best friends after, and we would celebrate after we, put everything to the side, and it was just, we wanted to win, and we did, and it was unbelievable. So you could be like that, and then it was up to Leo as captain to pick up the pieces from, a massive brawl. And so, but then, I suppose, the older you get, you can't be doing that, with some of the younger guys that went through school and were Leinster supporters, and they were in the stands when you're winning the Heineken Cups, and they admired some of the senior players. You have to treat them different, and but until you get told that, until you actually recognise that, you can't do it. So
can we get into some of the specific, because some brilliant stories in the book, and I want to sort of pick up on some of the headlines that fall out. So you've touched on the battle you had to get into Leinster. You burst onto the scene, the injury to Felipe Contepomi, and then obviously that European Cup final in 2009. You are known as one of the most methodical, studious players of the last, whatever it is, 20 years or so. But you banged over a drop goal in that final in particular, which wasn't studious or pre-planned. It came about how?
Well, I'd missed a couple the week before, 2 weeks before against Munster in the semi-final. So I was practicing a lot. And then remember warming up in Murrayfield, and you look up and the flags are blowing one way, but actually the wind comes in and swirls. And Tom Varndell, the winger, he kicked the drop goal from like the 10-metre line, and it soared through the post. And I was like, he's not a kicker. Like, this guy's an unbelievable like machine of a winger, try scorer, but like and I was going like, oh, okay. So that's what put it in my head. And then obviously when I got the ball, I was 10 yards further back, and I said, let's have a pop.
Which is extraordinary. Obviously, inspiration comes in many different forms.
Tom Varndell is a very rare one.
He's inspired me, not necessarily take drop goal.
But launching yourself onto that Leinster stage with and it was a long time coming, that trophy as well. What do you remember of what that did for you as a player, and the celebrations and the characters around that squad as well? That
was huge. It was a huge moment for them. Like, I could see the relief in the senior players, like the O'Driscolls, Horgans, Darcy. There was like relief, almost anything. For me, it was like, this is brilliant. Came in, played a game and a half, and win a Heineken Cup. So it was. Did feel a little bit guilty coming in, and Felipe had brought us to that final in many ways. He brought the team along, and then he misses out on the big day. Like, but I've got a great picture at home of me and him holding. He's in the suit, I'm in the jersey, and then he left Leinster after that. And then it was my, I suppose, chance to grab the jersey and go with it.
And if I say Michael Cheika to you, you think, or you remember
fondly,
what?
like like massive influence on. Well, first of all, I'd say massive influence on Leinster. Definitely changed the culture and the environment of Leinster. Came in, just ripped everything up pretty much. Got the squad, got rid of a lot of guys that had been there for a long time, which was maybe not too popular with some of the senior players. But then he brought in kind of young guys that he saw a big future in, and mixed sort of the international guys, the guys that I just mentioned, the Gervin Dempsey, Shane Horgan, the superstar backline almost, but then filled it with young guys that wanted to play for Leinster, like the Sean O'Briens, Rob Kearney, Luke Fitzgerald, Fergus McFadden, guys that Devin Toner, me, guys that were desperate to play for Leinster, that had come up through the ranks, and it was a great mix. And then, so he was unbelievable, and he was hard, like he was hard taskmaster.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I talk about it in the book, like but I was used to that. You know what I mean? I was used to it. I just thought it was normal. But it was still tough. But it stands to you, I think.
Did he rebrand you?
Yeah, he was the guy that called me Johnny. So now it's on the front of the book because of him.
Is that right? What were you before?
Yeah. So Jonathan.
Yeah.
And then the only
Jono,
one person
John
in the
Boy.
world calls me Jonathan, which is my mum.
Right, got it. When you got it wrong.
And so Jonathan, and then when I went to St. Mary's, whatever tradition or what happens in the school, it became Jono. So I was Jono. So if I was in the stadium and everyone was calling my name, until someone said Jono, I wouldn't look, and that would be one of my schoolmates or one of the club mates. And so it was him on whatever age I was, 19, 20, or maybe a bit older. Johnny, and it just stuck.
From a branding perspective,
and now I sign off emails. Johnny, I sign off like messages.
I like
Johnny.
it, but the thing is, there's only one Jono. That's the problem. It's a branding thing. You were like, can I compete with Martin Johnson as Jono? Probably not. Rebrand Johnny.
There you are.
Make up some
There's
spurious
another Johnny out
story.
there somewhere as well.
I can't live with that Johnny.
Yeah,
either,
that's what I mean. You can't. Yeah, and then another Johnny. Yeah, actually, well, I think you can.
There's a brilliant bit we've touched already on the relationship with Ronan O'Gara, but there was the incident which you refer to with the two of you going head, where the presence of Paul O'Connell comes into interview as well. Tell me about your relationship with Paul
O'Connell.
Yeah,
I won't do him justice because how highly I think of him as a player. Like, you know, did you get to play with him?
I never got to play. I got to play against him a few times, and I got to meet him a couple of times after. But
a few times.
Yeah, I never got to spend any time with him. Actually, it's weird because obviously we always used to lose to Ireland in some of those bigger games. So especially with England going away and like Grand Slam decider and all those kind of stuff, it's quite difficult because you'd be sort of head in hands in hell. So you didn't get to spend too much time with people. It was only kind of later on that I got to hang out with people. But I know that everybody loves him. He's an absolute boy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's unbelievable. Like brilliant teammate. Does everything for the team. Incredibly driven individually, and incredibly professional. But great crack. Like, I mean, unbelievable man to have a few points with, and like when he was in the team, everyone raised their game. Like you played 10-20% better, all in kind of search of approval for this guy. You know what I mean? Like, you know, when you put in a tackle, or you remember you used to slag him, it's a maul. It's a maul. So choke tackle was the thing that Ireland did, and he'd be screaming, it's a maul. But like when he picked you up off the ground, like, and gave you a big hug, like you felt $1 million, like, I mean, and he was an unbelievable teammate. He's an unbelievable coach.
Yeah.
Like he's just like he like Andy came in obviously to the Irish team and changed everything, changed the environment, changed how we did things. And it was slow to start, you know what I mean? But it was an incredibly smart move by Andy to go get this guy to come back, and he made a massive difference around set piece, of course, but the breakdown is his passion, and he's a brilliant coach as well. So,
and Joe Schmidt, who a lot of people who were in your sort of your collective, Shane Horgan for example, talks incredibly highly just of the detail that he brings in. What did he do for you as a coach?
He had a huge influence, like probably the biggest influence, probably up until Andy and Stuart really at the end, where like I spent so long with him, 8 years working under Joe between Leinster and Ireland, and like what he told me is embedded in my head. Like I would still play games at the end of my career with his voice like in my head, like
saying what?
Well, I probably need to go see a psychiatrist. Like, Hask's kind of looking at me blankly.
I was just thinking about if I got anyone's voice in my head, no, it's just my own saying do bad things all the time.
Well, he was like how he saw the game. Like he gets this kind of reputation that like he don't attack, and he's just a smart coach. So if he sees a trend in the game, he'll go with it. But he's like his thing was very simple message, like go to space. If there's no space, put the pressure on them. And like you could play any game, no matter how big or small, with that mantra. And that's always what I top of my notebook. That phrase every single game. Play the space, and it simplifies the game for you. And he didn't care if you ran from behind your own try line, and that's what I think some of the media forget, because international rugby is very different. Like there's not a lot of space at times, so you do have to play the kicking game. But in Leinster, I remember we used to run everything. You know what I mean? When we came to Ireland, international rugby, not as much space. You kind of have to find a different way. We kicked a lot, but he also saw the strengths in our back line. We had like a lot of back three player. We had Jarrah Payne playing 13. He was a full back, unbelievable in the air. We had Robbie Henshaw playing 12, had played full back all his way through. Brilliant in the air. We had a back three, brilliant in the air. So we used to kick a lot, and we used to win the ball back most of the time. And but when you get some success from it now, it's not good enough anymore. We need to start expanding our game, and which we did at times. But he's a genius, Joe.
Seems like a good man as well. Well, my experience of when I met him after games.
He's great fun, great crack. Like he was hard as well. Like he was strict.
That was the interesting thing I got, because again I met him post a game, and once I'd said hello to him once, he always said hello. I got a real nice warmth from him. I think I'm quite a good judge of character, and I thought sometimes, and I think I liked him. What was interesting when I spoke to some of the other players, that he said hard and quite controlling in regards to media and messages. And actually, I was going to ask you about that, whether that had rubbed off on you in terms of the way you would be the media, very professional, very concise, but kind of quite stepping away from that, or whether that was just what you were like anyway.
Probably a mixture of both. Like I didn't find that with Joe. But again, that was probably showed more about my personality than some of the other guys. And some guys struggled with it. Some guys felt very, nervous going in, because it was almost like going into an exam. Every meeting you had to know your detail. But like for me as a 10, dream.
You knew it anyway.
I think.
I worked hard to know it. But I did know it. But I knew everyone else knew it. So you go out onto the pitch knowing that everyone knows exactly what they need to do, and you didn't really need to.
I did feel that's very Southern Hemisphere based. They all are very detail focused. I've found that with any Southern Hemisphere coaches that I've ever worked with.
Well, Brian Smith, we walk into the team room, pop quiz. Desks out, like pop quiz, like drawing all the moves and stuff and like that. But I mean,
first 5 phases. Well, what happens if we make a break? Don't ask questions like that.
Don't ask questions.
I was saying with the Lions coming, obviously, the start of a big year. And there's a lot of question marks around Australia. We've sort of said that we feel that he's the best guy to be in that job right now to get them back to where they need to be. Would you agree with that? Do you see something?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I've seen improvements in the games. Joe will improve every team he goes into. Like you listen to the New Zealand guys talking about him. They loved him. Like the years he worked there. And he's been successful everywhere he's gone, really. You know what I mean? I know he didn't win a World Cup with New Zealand as an assistant coach, but they came pretty close. Like, I mean, lost,
one shaved penalty away.
Sometimes you need a little bit of luck. You know what I mean?
We were talking to someone the other day. Basically, they were saying that he obviously had such a profound effect on games because he was a great analysis of teams, would spot weaknesses and be able to adapt, and his ability to make teams adapt was very sort of quick, and was kind of, that was his USP. However, the game kind of, everyone has now the same level of analysis, the same sort of level of skill set, that margin, the ability to see deficits in a game aren't the same. Do you agree that you still think he's got an X factor that, just by his attention to detail will set him apart?
Yeah, I still see it though. Like you saw Australian, then they only didn't score because player just knocked it on at the very end, but they break New Zealand open with that move where the 9 kind of breaks left, switches with the, he scouted that. That's him just doing that. So he still has that intelligence and brains, and but it'll take time. You know what I mean? He's only had a few weeks with them, a few games, and obviously they had a sort of bad half against Argentina, and that was. But other than that, they've been really competitive, I would say.
one of the problems with achieving as much as you have is that we haven't got enough time to get through it all. Interesting, we're talking about Lions, though. Give us a sense of Andy Farrell. I mean, he's got cult status on this show, and anyone who's ever watched a Lions behind-the-scenes documentary, particularly 2013 and the Hurt Arena, etc., just buys in immediately. The moments that you had with him as a sort of an orator and the ability to press those emotional buttons, would he be up there as one of the best that you've played with in that aspect?
Oh, of course, yeah. That's his like, I was going to say his strength, but he's kind of strong. He's kind of strong at everything really now. Like he coaches both sides of the ball, like attack D, brilliantly. Like kind of up there with the best I've ever seen, and brilliant motivator, brilliant kind of emotional intelligence. Like, you know, knows how to get the best out of people. So like I think he's got it all. Like, I mean, so yeah, the Lions very lucky to get him. We've seen the benefit in Ireland over the last 8 years, first as assistant and now as head coach, and he's brought a level of consistency to the Irish team that we haven't seen before. Like, and that's evident it's not me making it up. Like, I think we won 27 out of 29 games. The 2 defeats were New Zealand in the quarterfinal and France, you know, away. So, like, that's remarkable for an Irish team, if you based on history, and it's a great credit to him and his coaching staff. Like, he's put that team together, and he's brilliant. Can't speak highly enough about him.
Your book is called Obsessed. If there was one itch from your career that you could scratch, rectify, change, would it be winning in 2017 with the Lions? Would it be go to Claremont instead of Racing?
This is your favourite question.
Well, it gives you an opportunity to perhaps go to somewhere we haven't touched on. Would it be the quarter-final? If you could do one day again to change it, it would be what?
It's a tough question, isn't it?
It is a tough question, Johnny. That's why we're here.
You
can change a few of them.
That's why I used to work at Sky.
I go back and play the quarter-final again against New Zealand.
Yeah.
That's from a definitely.
Take Wayne Barnes out before we get to the game.
You said it, not
you wrote it. I wasn't there. I love Barnesy, you know.
So it's I think that one. I think from a Lions point of view, I'd love to plonk myself into the 2021 tour.
Yeah.
Like, that was.
Is that a big rock under the beach towel, so to speak?
Yeah, it is. And it's not me being like a spoiled kid about it. It just rankles. Like, you know what I mean? I really wanted to go. Obviously, everyone wants to go.
Yeah.
I'm not pissed off because I really wanted to go and didn't get picked. But, like, I don't know. I just felt that I played well in the Six Nations, and I kind of explained in the book, like, I knew Gats and I knew the type of player that he liked, and he'd picked kind of other players that hadn't played, you know, pre-tour and other tours, and I kind of in my head, I think the reason I was so disappointed because I thought I was going to go. I said, like, I really think I'm gonna go, and I suppose I didn't.
But I messaged you at the time about that, actually, that incident. Because I remember I messaged you saying, like, I'm sorry to not see you in there. And I said, well, you know, what happened? Because I was as surprised as anyone. And it was interesting because you quote it, so I'm not revealing secrets, but it was essentially about the fact that he wanted a more resilient player, or felt you weren't resilient enough.
No, I don't know the answer. I don't know, and I don't expect to be told. Like, I don't want to be told. I don't like to get picked for the Lions. I just said in my own mind, I didn't tell anyone that I expect to be picked. Apart from, like, probably my brother and my wife. Like, I mean,
and you bought all the flights to the family.
Hotels.
Bought a load of merchandise. But anyway, apart from that,
it's an honour and like a privilege to get picked. You should never expect to get picked. So that's maybe the lesson to take away from it. So I don't expect anyone to ring me and say, look, we're not picking you because of this. That's not how the Lions works. It's an honour to get picked, and then you either take the honour and you get accepted, or you don't. It's not and that's just what happens. So I don't need an explanation.
No.
I like, it's just it. Like, I just didn't get picked, and that's it.
The flip side of the which one would you change because it still rankles is in 25 years' time when you're smoking a cigar on the porch in a rocking chair and reflecting, which is the one day you wish you could do again because that was as good as it got? Would it be the drop goal in Paris? Was there a moment where you thought...
I think you always go back to the games where you win something.
Yeah.
Like, that was a game, that was a moment. Yeah, that was a great moment for that team. But when you win something, they're the moments that you go back to, when you get to go home with a trophy and you get to spend 24, 48 hours, 72 sometimes if this man's involved, celebrating, being with each other, like, you know, drinking together. They're the moments. So for me, the one that sticks out, Leinster 2011 Tynan Cup final, a few days after that. And then with Ireland, it'll be 2023 Grand Slam.
Was that the one where all the videos came out of you piling someone's house?
That was it, yeah. That was, yeah.
Saw a lot of those videos.
Go on, no, that needs explanation. Whose house and what?
So I think the lads were all drinking, and Peter O'Mahony said, he was slagging Hugo Keenan, and he said, whatever, your dad's better cracked than you. I wish we could go out and have a few pints with him. And then one of the lads go, how funny it would be if we just, you know, got a bus and basically kidnapped Hugo Keenan's dad, PK. And they said, yeah, let's do it. So they hired a bus, and they basically went around, kidnapped, like he was on a call at home on Zoom, like, and next thing this herd of animals come in and literally pick him up out of his chairs, like talking to people online, sorry about this, like brought him. But then they went around and basically did the same with like 5 or 6 other dads.
Wow.
And they went there, like, so it was brilliant. So yeah, the video was taken of, I don't know who took the video.
We do that with your
Hostage
mum.
situation. Yeah, all right, calm down.
She's an absolute rocket.
Right, cut that out for starters.
Sorry. I'll just put it how it is, yeah. Not sure what a chat's like, doesn't really matter.
Wait till my dad comes in with a blunderbuss.
Yeah,
Then you got a problem.
Demand a duel.
Yeah.
One of the other things, there's a lot in the book about the injuries that you had. How are you now, physically?
I'm good now, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
Feeling young and WD-40 in the right places, etc. Is there any hangover or concern? Or?
Not really, no. No, I played out half, so that explains a lot of it. Probably the worst injury I got was my very last one in that 2023 game against England in the Aviva, which I just basically ruptured my groin. Kind of went into a more for some reason.
First mistake.
First and last time. And it came down on the inside of my leg and basically just ripped a few adductors off the bone completely. So it was so bad it was actually good because they basically took bone with it. So they just basically, the surgeon just stuck the bone back on, screwed it in.
At least you weren't trying to flip someone over.
Yeah.
It's not even a cool injury,
It's like
wasn't
that,
it?
like that with my groin.
It's when people go, what did you do? Was do that playing, fighting? No, doing a TikTok video at nearly 40
with Mike Tyndall.
with Mike Tyndall.
The state of your
Wankers.
world. Yeah.
You deserve what you get. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'm not even upset about it. It was my idea, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk about it. I obviously sit on a lot of groups with, I mean, the rumour mills are always great, but there was came back through actually AP McCoy. It was like, I actually think it's a bit worse than they're all making out.
No, it was bad, yeah. Like the surgeon said to me, like, you might not play again. Like you might not go to the World Cup. This surgery needs to go like really, really well. But when he went in, like I said, he explained that he saw the piece of bone, all the adductors were still like attached to the bone, so they just put the bone back on. And then he was just really, it's up to you now, like, you know, you need to make sure this heals properly, you need to do the right thing. And like obviously I was quite diligent with that. But again, like if I was 26 and that happened, like it could have been a battle for the next. You know, I couldn't do the amount of kicking that I wanted at the World Cup. I had to adapt. You know, spent a lot of time with Dave Aldred, in terms of figuring out how I can practice without putting too much pressure on the groin. It's because of my kicking side. So it was. Yeah, that was my last kind of
Any
fight
issues with it now?
to get back.
In the football,
Yeah,
does it
in
tweak a bit?
football, I need to warm it up well, and
Yeah.
the odd time it's a bit sore.
Just get the
after.
professional massages off the logo bus.
Yeah, exactly. To wrap it up, I suppose, there's a really nice letter in your book from Brian Wall, who was coach at...
No, he's teacher.
Teacher.
He was
I
my
beg your
dean
pardon.
in 4th, 5th and 6th year.
Got you.
Yeah.
And he writes a line in this letter to you where he says, when it's all over, do not end up wishing you could turn the clock back and do it differently. Is that where you are? Wise words.
Cheers, Brian.
Hard to live by. Cheers, Brian.
Just got that wrong.
it is.
Are you at peace with everything you've achieved, or is the insatiable desire that we've spent quite a lot of time talking about mean that peace is probably quite a hard thing to find?
Well, yeah, the previous questions you asked me, could I go back and change a day?
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah, you had quite a long list.
So you always look back and go, could I have, like, you know, towards the end of my Leinster career, I was like, I really wanted us to win 5 as a club. I'd have been part of all 5, so it was going to be like, I think it would have been me and Cian Healy only. That would have been like, okay, We're the only people with 5. So there was that was a huge motivation. You didn't achieve it. The World Cup was a massive motivation with Ireland, didn't achieve it. So yeah, but like when you explain 24 not playing for Ireland, thinking like, will this ever happen? Will I ever play for Ireland? So in that regard, yeah, like I'm very, very happy. But the type of, I suppose, person that I think any sports person is really, you always look back and wish, could I have done a couple of things better? Definitely. Could I have won So yeah, you always, it's a bit of both, I would say.
Yeah.
So sitting on the fence there.
Still work to be done by the sound of it. One of the extraordinary things about the book is, and what's become very apparent, and I've said this to you two before, but you guys operate in a world that most normal people, and I say normal as Joe Public, simply can't understand. And it almost feels a little bit like what is very, very normal to you, with the scraps on a daily basis and the extraordinary desire to achieve. That is your normal. But I think for anyone that reads your book, it's at times it's a hell of a eye-opener as to what it takes to succeed to the level you have. Well done. It's a hell of a book.
You.
Just before we finish, everybody that comes on the show gets a bottle of Blackeye, but with you, we're actually going to give you 2. So one is for you to enjoy in retirement as you see fit. The second tins is going to be produced because, as we said, there's conflict. There's conflict from start to finish of the book. We're going to send a bottle of Blackeye from you to anyone in the game who you would like to give a little something to. A Jaco Paper, a Leo Cullen,
Wayne Barnes,
a Rieko Ioane,
Wayne Barnes, Ronan O'Gara.
We'd be out of business if we sent it to anyone.
No, you get to choose one. Is there
Finn
anyone you'd like to
Russell.
send it? Or your greatest mate?
Anyone you've
whoever it is.
ever met.
Yeah, exactly. You might want to take one home for the wife.
Yeah.
Is there anyone who you would like to? I always remember.
Do you know what? I'll send it to Leo Cullen.
Okay.
Because I stole the name of the book from him.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, he gave us a bit of a talking to one year, and he challenged us. He said, like, in the Leinster teams that he was involved with, he found that those teams had a lot of guys that were like obsessed with winning, obsessed with doing the right thing, obsessed with whatever way you want to put it. And it really resonated with me. And I was kind of going like, how many in this group? But I think the current group are like that. But that's where I got the idea from, and so I stole it from him.
Yeah.
So he doesn't sue me in court. I'll send it to him.
We'll send him a bottle of Blackeye.
I did one of the things I know we're going to wrap up. What I thought was really interesting was that the moving bit after the final, when your boy looked at you and said,
"Oh,
yeah, you're still the world's greatest, Daddy," or whatever it was. And
Well, it sounds you were chirping at Rieko. You can block your ears for that, my boy. But,
Look, I just think
earmuffs. Yeah.
I just think what I wanted to ask you about that is having had a child later on, it'll never know me. For doing what I used to do. And I imagine she'd have turned to me going, Mummy says you're a dickhead. That's about all I'll get.
Daddy, I've read all these things online. Is it true?
Yeah.
I think my son's heard the same thing.
But you, I think that must have been an amazing moment for you to have played as long as you did, for them to children to see and then to understand and give it context. I think would have been amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so Luca was obviously a little bit older than the girls, so he was there. He was mad into it, like, you know what I mean? So look, that was a lovely moment. Got me out of a bit of trouble over the, subsequent few weeks. Like Laura was giving out to me about something. I was like, well, Luca thinks I'm the best. He said, no, he says you're the best at rugby, not that. I said, no, he said I'm the best dad. He said I'm the best dad.
Best parent. Yeah. Any better than Mummy is what he actually
you can
said.
twist something whatever way you want, really.
Yeah.
But look, it was a very special time for him. I explained in the book, like he was there with all the coaches' sons. None of the players really had kids the same age, but all the coaches did. So he got to hang around with them. They were a little bit older than him, so really cool in his eyes, and they looked after him really well. And so the weekends for him, going to see his dad play in full stadiums, getting to go on the pitch after, going into the dressing room after, coming back, being able to have a few beers with the lads, hearing all the crack, he's more interested in hanging around with like Mac Hansen and James Lowe than me, to be honest. But
they are a lot cooler.
It was a very, very special time for him. But on the flip side then,
when the tap gets turned off, that's it.
Well, like Laura was telling me, like, so she'd walk him to school and like, Monday morning, and she said he was walking into the school having been like, in the papers or on the TV, and 6-year kids, like 18-year-olds coming up, hey Luca, like high-fiving him. It's like, almost, like walking into the basketball arena, like low fives, high fives, and then suddenly that ends, and actually maybe the opposite happens where a few kids Dad fucked up the World Cup.
Your dad's selling glasses soon.
Your dad fucked up the World Cup again. And suddenly there's the other side.
Yeah.
And so it's a mixture of both. but it gave him like a real love of the game, and he now wants to
I do think it's quite cool now. In fact, people that I played with this, whether it be Redpath, whether it be de Glanville, whether it be a Jomo, Slight Home.
Dylan Moody's in goal at Southampton, I think.
Mood just that's how bad it is. I think his first month salary as a goalkeeper down there was 35 bags for his first month.
Oh my God!
It's the problem with rugby.
Yeah.
But I think it's quite cool, and hopefully we'll see a little Sexton.
He plays on the same team as Brian O'Driscoll's kid.
What's he like?
Yeah,
What's his kid like?
Exactly like his dad.
Really?
Yeah, like literally.
Do they fight now? I'd love it if
so
they just
fast, centre of gravity.
Really?
Good
skills.
Unbelievably.
Oh.
Like he's
What position is O'Driscoll Mini?
well, they don't really have positions
Oh,
yet.
so they're at that,
but you
yeah.
kind of know, like he'd be either like this rapid, like
Right.
winger centre.
He's not.
He could end up at
forwards.
9 as well.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll be here in 30 years' time talking
Imagine.
to a mini Sexton and
Well,
a
if
mini
I'm still
O'Driscoll?
alive in 30 years,
If we're still here in 30 years' time,
30 years.
something's
It's
going
like they're 10, so like.
Yeah, well,
10 years.
yeah, well, look,
40.
your age,
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah,
See,
yeah.
that's about right. If it goes along you. There's that extraordinary line at the end of Goodfellas where Ray Liotta says, "And just like that, it's all over." And I just wonder when you're washing the car or putting the bins out or renegotiating the mortgage or whatever it is,
People
where you,
like that.
exactly, best out of us. But
He came for a podcast with 18 people.
that's true. Your entourage is big. And congratulations on that. But the bit that you missed the most, or I mean, do you ever stop and think, some of that was very, very special? Do you
all of
recognise
it.
that you were very incredibly talented,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
very, very lucky to walk the walk you did?
No, not that I was incredibly lucky to do like one day of what I did. You know, like I said, my brother, like I had the constant reminder of how lucky I was. Never took it for granted, but like it was my dream to do what I did. Once the Man United dream subsided, it was so you live your dream. Of course, with that, like the book explains, lots of ups and downs, lots of bits that you wish you could change. But that's, like I said, all part of the story. But yeah,
Where can they
like
get it? Where can people
Yeah,
find
what
it?
is the website? And it's available in all good bookstores and
Global?
Yeah.
Where do we get it from? Do you want to sign one? And
global. I don't think we
johnnysexton.com.
sell many copies in New Zealand.
Burns well on the fire.
It keeps them warm at night.
All
Yeah.
sales in Dublin, only Dublin.
Just Dublin. Just Dublin.
It's a brilliant read.
It is. I'm gonna give this. We'll get it signed and put on the shelf.
Yeah, we'll do that.
I like this. And also, I was just thinking, if the glass thing doesn't work out with shoulders like that, you can become a chimney sweep.
And on that bombshell, one of the greatest players the game has seen is insulted on his way out the door. Yeah,
Would be wrong if Hask hadn't thrown an insult in
very
somewhere,
true.
wouldn't it?
Johnny, well done. It's a brilliant book. It's been a real treat to have you on once again. Good luck with sales.
Thank you.
Good luck with the glassware. You're always welcome on this show if the media ever is more of a fancy, and we'll get a bottle in the post to Leo Cullen. One relationship repaired with the power of Blackeye. Johnny, great to see you.
5,692 to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We will get a bottle in the post to the great Leo Cullen. A reminder, of course, that Blackeye Gin is an award-winning gin that combines botanicals from each of the leading rugby nations with a core mission to support the future of our game. £1.50 from each bottle sold funds 3 key categories: research, risk and recovery for past and present rugby players. The plan is for Blackeye to become one of the biggest donors to rugby-related causes within 5 years. Swap a beer for a gin and tonic and help the game you love. It's available Amazon, Ocado and Master of Malt, with one big listing to be announced soon. Waitrose, if you're looking to guess. Elsewhere, our Mo, Skaz and their Red Roses teammates beat the Black Ferns very convincingly again at the weekend. Well done to them at WXV1 in Canada. And one man made all the difference to WXV2 in South Africa. Their leader, Sia Khaleesi. I'm sure you've seen it on social media by now. And would you believe it, Sia, the great man, joins Elmer and Meg on the Good, the Skaz and the Rugby this week, doing his bit for the women's game. Don't miss that. Lock-in is $3.99 if you fancy a little bit more from GBR and the behind-the-scenes stories. Go and have a little look at that. We are talking about Hask's rehab. Is that for your arm or for other
Just
problems
general.
in your
Just
life?
general, yeah.
Right,
Both.
general
Mixture of
rehab
all,
for
yeah.
Hask. Please
Well-being.
Yeah.
we need to fundraise for that too. And our brand new book, would you believe, The Good, the Bad and the Rugby Unleashed, is hitting the shelves. Hold it up, Hask, please, for the good people. October the 24th. It is... We've got the first initial copies.
This
It's
is
a
it,
weighty
yeah.
tome. The book is also available as an audio book with a lot of heavy breathing from one of the three of us. So if you're having trouble sleeping, that will certainly do the
Jeff
job.
Vader.
Oh no, it'll give you nightmares.
Oh, I'll give you nightmares.
Or get you aroused.
Amazing. One of the game's greats, and in 15 seconds, the whole show has slid off the rails. That is a wrap for today's episode. Dream Team, thank you for tuning into the Good, the Bad and the Rugby in partnership with Continental Tyres, our go-to for all things tyres, whether on the rugby field or on the road. Safety always comes first, and unlike this show, Continental Tyres are award-winning. Well done to them. Good. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on social media for the latest rugby updates. We will see you next week. We're a Folding Pocket production, and this one was produced by Tom Edwards. Bye for now.